So we're doing episode 2 of interviews from the parking lots / banter with friends. So we had a comment last time. It's I'll read it. It's from Anonyme. English Canada is obviously jealous of this law. Religious freaks will surely contest this law with a bloodsucker lawyer and a crazy charter. If, like I think, they will go to court. Federal judges don't give a damn about collective obligation. This is another reason Quebec should get out of this country. I ask you, this is actually a decent point that he's going to bring. I ask you, if my religion was nudity, could I go, sorry, he misspelled it there. Could I go to court nude? Of course not, because it's indecent. Well, indecency is in the eye of the beholder. I can assure you that a vast majority of Canadians think that the niqab or burqa is indecent and impolite. It is well-known fact that society, except religion, are proportionally poorer than atheistic society. Okay, well, that is kind of true. They already don't pay municipal tax and have a zillion tax breaks that leads to poorer health and educational system. So you were saying about women being okay.
Yeah, I was just saying that the idea from the male perspective comes from this kind of morality, purity idea that men are corrupted by women, and the only way to protect the man is to cover the women up. And that to me is like at the core of anybody who feels that the niqab should be banned. That is, to me, a really, really problematic idea that needs to be squashed. Now, from the women's perspective, what I described last time was that some women probably feel empowered and feel very safe in niqab. And what I realized that is like I said earlier, it's that of course they feel safe, of course they feel powerful. They're anonymous, you know?
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about covering your hair. We're talking about being unidentifiable. And that's something we don't have acceptable anywhere in this culture. And so if we want to be useful and we want to be helpful and we want to be recognizing that is a backwards thing that even some women may have found comfort and power in, we have to be compassionate. We have to say, look, this is a very difficult thing and a thing that is going to demand some courage from you. But all the women here live this way. All the women in this country live in a way that they're identifiable, and I realize that's a little scary, and that's a big change, but you can do it, just like every other woman here. And in the meantime, we're going to learn about your culture a little bit so that we can understand what you're going through, or whatever. But the point is like we can't just sit there and be like, oh, fucking people, blah, 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 blah. Then just don't vote to have somebody bring refugees in and stay out of the fucking way, because this is, this is our country, and a lot of people are very comfortable with refugees coming in. In fact, the majority of Canadians are comfortable with refugees coming in. So just go back to your piss pot, Anonymous.
You know what bothers me is that I don't really understand where he's like. He seems like he's anti religion, but he's also anti Quebec. But I don't think he agrees with the Islam, nor agrees with Quebec. Again, the thing is about the niqab, it comes from the hadiths, and the hadiths are like apocryphal texts that most Muslims take as canon.
Oh, okay.
So. And a lot of the barbarism that you see coming from Islamic countries actually comes from this hadiths. Although I will again say that I do think the Quran, like most Abrahamic religious texts, is questionable.
Yeah.
Regardless, we'll move on to the topic for today that I will bring to you, and that's my problem with the CBC. And it starts with this, the fact that I remember when Harper was in power, you had articles about oh, look how much oil we have, oil's fucking great, look at oil sands, look at his money, and then and the CBC was publishing things like, is the global warming a hoax? You know, like shit like that. And it's like,
I'm not sure that's true.
but they were
but
very.
let's say it is true.
They were very like. I remember these articles like, oil is fucking awesome.
They were pro Harper.
It'll create so many jobs in Canada. Blah 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 blah. And sure, I may be extending the global warming thing, but like definitely were like, oil is fucking awesome.
Okay.
And they were saying that the emissions what they did say is that the emissions that will be done will be clean, that it won't be as bad, blah, 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 blah. Okay, fast forward to Justin Trudeau. Now, if you see all the articles, they're like all pandering to this social justice agenda, like the liberal government is already a deficit spending, and they have been for a while, and this article that I read, Justin Trudeau allocates $41 million to gender research. Okay, is that really the forefront of Canadian issues right now? I'm not too sure. Or, what was another headline that I saw recently? Yeah, this one. It was like, world leaders are encouraged by Justin Trudeau's feminist approach. Okay, like my problem. Like, it's not about these articles. It's just that CBC will literally publish anything. Well, not anything. They're a little bit more reputable than like our neighbor news at down south. And I will make that distinction. But as far as Canada is concerned, they will publish things that are like aligned to the incumbent government. And I think that
they're a little more fact based than Huffington Post, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Huffington Post is
yeah,
along that same concern, I think, right?
Well, like, I mean, they both sides are crazy. You got the Fox News, and then you got CNN, and it's well, frankly, I think it's owned by the same people. And
I'm not sure it is, but the thing is with CNN is it's just a big, it's just an entertainment news network, right?
So is Fox.
It's no, but I mean, like, the difference between the two, right? Fox is clearly like the most like right-wing corporate like influence, like the things that go on there are just so heavily manipulated, whereas CNN,
info entertainment.
Yeah, but CNN, you know, right, that the chief director or something, I don't know, the CEO changed to the guy. Like, the most recent change was 5, 6, 7 years ago. And the guy recently ran ESPN, right? And so he redesigned CNN all over the place. So all their segments have, like, 5 pundits sitting at a long table arguing about things just like ESPN, right? A whole bunch of people who have opinion about sports fighting about what's the important part. Anyways, that's not the point. But the point is, to me, CNN, whereas Fox is, like, really out there, CNN is not really biased to one side or the other. It's just trying to create conflict all the time.
Well, yeah,
like,
that's just ratings.
It's only about, like, maximizing the conflict to the end.
Well, that's ratings. They get money from that, so.
Yeah. I honestly don't believe they're too biased one way or another. I think the real concerning bias are the things they don't report, the things that we don't know about, but anyways, that's...
Well, it's a lie of omission. But anyways, going back to the CBC, do you think that they will, like, go into, the agenda of the incumbent government?
This is my interpretation of what you're observing, okay? I would say that, in general, the CBC has been, for probably the longest time, it's been more of a liberal source. Like, not liberal party, but a more liberal, left-leaning source of news. In the past, they were a little more critical. What I would say is that during Harper's time, all departments of government had Harper kind of like looking into it. I hesitate to use the word Harper spies, but Harper really was trying to run a fascist government as much as he could. I mean, they had gag orders on the scientists across the board. They had, like, his top-ranging people were putting their fingers in the smallest, minutest details of ministries across the board. So it does not surprise me that perhaps CBC was either scared or was being told what to report on a little bit. Like, Harper was doing some really bad backdoor shit. And I think it wouldn't surprise me if that messed with the CBC during his time.
And you don't think the Liberals are doing that now with the CBC?
I don't think they have to.
You don't you think that they're just running on their own?
Because I think the liberal world right now is acknowledging that there are a lot of social justice issues and is caught up in the most trendy way to deal with them right now. The most, I think the most trendy way to deal with these issues is to create just these intricate webs of safe spaces as if they represent like universal safe spaces, and they're not. Like that's one of the problems with the with a lot of the social justice warrior movements. That being said, what I would say is, as I was talking to a friend of mine who was doing some feminist studies courses, and we were talking about the niqab ban. And I know you don't love that stuff, but we were talking about the niqab ban, and I would say that she was much more flexible than I would have imagined. And honestly, the discussions that she had in her feminist studies class was much more informative than the stuff that I read about and the stuff that's being presented as kind of the social justice warrior movement, the most vocal probably elements of the social justice warrior movement. But you know how I stand on these things. Like,
yeah.
I think that there are a lot of issues, but I think the idea that the world owes us a feeling, to me all of these issues are about how we feel about things, and I think that kind of the road to a sense of wellness and happiness in oneself is achievable under any circumstances. But what we're seeing with the social justice warrior movement is the acknowledgement that circumstances do affect how difficult it is to find a path to happiness and satisfaction. The problem is when you kind of externalize the anger and the hate and whatnot, which we all do, even people who are not part of this SJW movement. When we externalize all of those feelings and decide that the world must conform to fit them, it's a big problem. It's really problematic, because the truth is that there's a lot of people who disagree. I used to talk to...
well, there's a silent majority, I would say.
No, but I would say... Well, but here's the thing, right? The argument for the social justice warriors is often that the people who disagree are the people who don't know what it's like. But I remember, like, I really had trouble with this, but I was willing to understand, and I remember asking, Black Canadian females who I worked with, or Asian Canadian females, Some were immigrants, we work with a bunch of immigrants at work from Latin America, And the truth is that almost none of them felt very comfortable with the message behind a lot of these social justice warriors. Most of them acknowledged...
have a victim complex,
Well, but they acknowledge that absolutely circumstances are such that as women they face certain challenges that men don't have, or as persons of color they face challenges that other people don't have. They do face racism, they do face sexism, but they didn't feel it inhibited them from kind of living the life the way they wanted to, and that to me is the mindset that will solve these things. Now, it's the circumstances I think are much more dire in certain situations. Like, people dying at the hands of police is like, whatever. That's a really difficult circumstance to find a path to wellness.
Well, that I would say that in Canada, that's not really an issue.
Yeah, I would say that in the U.S. that's a much bigger issue. But anyways, all that to say is that, like, that's my perspective of how we need to deal with that. But I think the liberal world is really caught up with this issue and is dealing with it by kind of externalizing all of the hate and the shame. And then, of course, everybody on the opposite side does the exact same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And they start saying, well, no, I'm uncomfortable now because you're making me. But the truth is all it takes is someone to listen. All it takes is someone to just be like, it's okay, And when I have had people who are really caught up in an anger about social justice warrior issue, the thing that has helped is just like acknowledging what they're feeling, just listening to them, And at the end of it, I just ask questions along the way. And at the end of it, let me tell you, they're way more flexible about their thoughts, because what everybody just wants is to feel acknowledged, and then they can relax. It's like, they can like let go of all that shit. Anyways, I'm getting too much into my personal philosophy, but the point is that the liberal world is trying to like struggle with this discomfort, this extreme disorientation where we kind of are revealing that circumstances are extremely unequal across the board, and we're getting caught up in the fear that brings, that is somewhat normal for it to bring, and so to me, I don't think it's, I don't know, to me it's much more easy a thought to assume that they are just doing the thing that all liberals are kind of doing right now.
But just to answer that comment quickly, and then we'll move back to the other thing that I wanted to talk about, was the difference between CBC Online and CBC Radio.
Oh, yes.
That's the one thing I wanted to talk about, because, like, obviously online has a bigger... But I was going to tell you something about this, and I got my soundboard that I forgot, and I was going to do the... You're breaking the conditioning! So, as a quote-unquote person of color, although I'm, like, among the whitest people you know. I don't see the reason for, like, usually some white upper class female to tell me how I'm being oppressed. You know?
Yes. No, of course.
That pisses me off. Like,
but you have to think that, like, anybody who considers themselves liberal acknowledges their issues and gets so caught up in the like, I have to fix this, I have to do this, and the guilt and the shame and projecting, and then like it's just like it's like we I don't know, it's just like a toxic cycle, and absolutely it's ludicrous. But if you get caught up with how ludicrous it is, then you're still part of that toxic cycle, right?
Well, I just think it's silly, but
no, of course.
Well, now tell me about the CBC radio instance that you had.
Yeah, it was interesting as I was thinking about this CBC News thing, because the truth is, online, I think of it as kind of Huffington Post with way less fluff and just a little more incision. I don't know, that's not a good word.
The CBC Online?
The CBC Online is just a little more useful than Huffington Post, and has way less like fluff entertainment stories, although it still has some seriously questionable articles where you think, why is this news? But,
well, I think HuffPo is terrible.
No, I think HuffPost is garbage. Yeah, I think there's a lot of really shitty stuff that's written there. But anyways, all that to say is that's how I feel about CBC Online. And I was listening to CBC Radio the other day, and they were discussing one of the provincial government issues, and they were talking about how this lawsuit in one part of the country fell through, and they were blamed. Basically, the topic of the lawsuit was, was this guy doing some sort of political bribe, or was this just standard political maneuvering, right? And the basically everybody had heard the main piece of evidence was this recording in which one guy offers to help set another guy up, basically, for a position.
Sounds
right?
like any day in politics, to be honest.
Well, and this was the thing. So the first thing they did is they said, we want to discuss this, right? We want to open up to the calls. But then they said a whole bunch of really interesting things. They start describing all these criteria for self-evaluation to help you decide whether or not you should participate by calling, which was very interesting to begin with. So they started saying things like, look, if you have some sort of professional experience or expertise that would allow you to shed some light on the details of these issues, like if you're a politician or a lawyer, we'd love to hear from some lawyers, or we'd love to, and then they said, or if you were affiliated or a big fan of the Liberals, a diehard fan of the Liberals, but this makes you uncomfortable, we want to hear from you.
Does the party involve Liberals?
Yeah, the Liberals were the ones. The case was thrown out, right?
Oh.
And then they said, and if you're a big fan of the Conservatives, but you think all of this is nonsense, we want to hear from you. They were really giving these extended criteria. You must have spoken for an entire minute, just describing these things of people they wanted to listen to. And then before they went to the calls, they brought on this guy, who I thought brought on a relatively, he was a little flashy, a little showy, but in general, he was trying to point out that people hear this kind of thing and they think that there's no, they think that there's all kinds of money taking place, but really politics involves constantly this throwing support behind people in return for something else. There's all that is politics, right?
Right.
And so I thought it was a very kind of nuanced sort of answer to this, And so they started calling people, and unfortunately, the people calling in, like, I don't know, either the least self-aware people or whatever. The first guy who calls is literally the complete opposite of what they want. He's like just this diehard conservative who's like, the liberals are just full of shit, blah 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 blah. It's the provincial liberals though, right? Which are perhaps one of the most unfavorable parties right now. But he's just like railing on them. He's like, this is just the tip of the iceberg for Kathleen Wynne and her cronies, and it was like, okay, but we're trying to discuss this and the nuances of this, and the host was like was trying to rein him in, but she didn't really care to try that hard. And then finally she says to her guest, do you want to respond? And he was like, well, no, actually, no, I have nothing to say. She's like, great, I understand. And then they didn't let him speak again, the guy on the phone. I thought, wow, like, talk about really, really trying to discuss something legitimate, And then they eventually had this guy who said he ran for, someone said a long-standing, well-respected city councillor was going out of office, and he said, I want you to run, right? I want you to run for my position. You're very well loved in the community. You're very well known. I think you're very knowledgeable. I think you'd be very good. And if you do this, I will put every one of my contacts in your back pocket.
Is this CBC or EC radio?
This is CBC.
No, but like EC is just the French version of CBC.
No. This was CBC. This was in English. He says, yeah, I'll put all my contacts in your back pocket. And he said, so there was bribery there, but he was joking. He was using bribery kind of in an ironic way there.
Yeah.
Because he was trying to point out that this is what politics is. And to me, it's important that we were having that discussion, because clearly I think a lot of people see politics as we vote for someone and they just try and do whatever we want them to, or they're corrupt. But really, there's just like endless maneuvering in politics that has to occur, because you can't really accomplish anything without getting people's support. And so there's always this sort of like, okay, I'll give you this, you give me that, I'll give you this, you give me that,
That's just life, to be honest,
Well, I think so, but I think politics way more than life.
Yeah,
it's
just
like
politics,
that's just like the constant. It's the constant maneuvering. Whereas in life, like, love. I'm the big hippie in these conversations, I know. But when you have intimacy and love, or a good friendship with someone, you don't need so much of this maneuvering all the time. You can actually just like be a person and exist. But anyways, all the point of that is that I thought that was such a refreshing sort of approach to a topic that I felt was could very easily have been reduced to what that guy who was a diehard conservative said. It was a very kind of insightful and knowledgeable and a discussion that made me think and be like, yeah, you know what, I kind of take for granted that this happens or that happens. And I just thought, wow, like I can't think of a single television media source that I would expect this level of
objectivity. But I was thinking that when you were telling me that, like, I think I said that over the phone last time, that I think that one thing is talking on the radio, how many people were listening to, the people in their cars, but like when you have the CBC online and you it's like opinion piece, why giving Omar Kadir $10 million is a great thing. And then you read the comments on... I want you to go to any CBC article and just read the comments. It just shows you, like, well, there will be, like, one poster. It's like, oh, yeah, this is amazing. But the rest of the posters will be like, what the hell? What is this? Like, why are... it's just... And it's not, like...
Yeah,
I just throw Mark Kadir as an example. But it's like that kind of level of bullshit.
But I'm saying that, like... Going to the comments as an indication of anything is like... If you go to the comments, again, you're dealing with anonymous people.
No, this is
people
Facebook.
Who feel...
This is Facebook. People's names are tagged beside these comments.
There's even a level of anonymity because when you're on Facebook, who the fuck is this random person? You know their name, you see their picture. Who the fuck knows if you'll ever see this person, if you'll ever have any influence on their life? They are like untouchable. It's not quite the same, but it's that's quite a powerful place, and we know the history of humanity is covered with the most powerful people eventually connecting that power to their ego, integrating their ego into that power structure.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I check the CBC and sometimes it's like, oh boy, it's time to shit post. Because it's like, fuck sakes, like, the comments... I know that you say that they hold no value, but, like, I would be surprised to see any opinion piece by the CBC, or any piece that is just, like honestly liberal garbage, trying to tell you how, like, the deficit spending is amazing, and blah, 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 and my favorite quote by Trudeau, the budget will balance itself out, and all...
But I think I think that quote is taken, like, way out of context. I think, in fact, that's a reference to his father's work. Not to get into this too deeply, but a reference to his father. No, I know, but I think that there was something useful there. I just think that, honestly, I think Trudeau is a pretty terrible speaker. I think the things that everybody thinks are his great quotes are like mishaps. They're like... When he was like, because it's 2017, if you watch that video, he looks so, like, not sure what to say, and then when everybody applauds, he's like, yeah, I did just own that moment, didn't I? Like, it's like, he's so uncomfortable, and like, to his credit, he grew up with a lisp, so he's got, like, some deep-rooted speaking anxiety that I'm sure will never completely go away unless he really works on it, but...
Well, I mean, his fan base loves him.
Well, he's attractive, and like I said, he's such a palatable way of expressing this kind of this problematic solution to social justice circumstances.
Now let me deliver
he's
the punchline.
He's a beautiful white guy who's leading a country, who's telling you, "I love you." You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but let me deliver the punchline of the joke.
What?
That his fan base loves him, and that's everybody who lives outside of Canada.
Well, that's as much as that. I mean, obviously there are a lot of people who still love him here, but even me, like, I still consider myself relatively progressive, and I have some serious qualms about the way things are going there. But it's true. Whenever I go to New York, whenever I visit friends. Especially in the United States, they're just, like, posting about him, how they're so in love with him. A lot of people who are very, very aggressive about social justice issues, in my experience, are just totally enamored with him. And again, it's like the most palatable expression of SJW goodness that is that you could ever see.
I checked the polls today, and apparently the re-election is at a flip of a coin for Trudeau now.
Yeah, no, for sure. But you have to, like, I don't know. The polls mean all kinds of things. It doesn't surprise me that much that it's like 50-50 or whatever. 30,
I think it's a lot less, to be honest, because I saw this on the CBC as well.
Yeah.
I think that there is no way in hell Trudeau gets re-elected. No way in hell.
I have no idea. I really couldn't tell you. I would say that I am terrified of what the conservative... Well, I'm not terrified. I just think that the conservative guy is so disgustingly backward in his viewpoints, and I think you look back in his history and the
Is it
shit that he
Andrew
talks
Scheer
about.
you're talking
Yeah,
about?
I think he's so backwards.
It's time to.
It's time to look up a few things, eh?
Wait, yeah. No. Well, I was just gonna bring out the soundboard here.
Oh.
Congratulations!
Well, I'm telling you, Andrew Scheer and Trump would probably be good buddies, except that Andrew Scheer, in that whole like mentality of like elitism and whatnot, Andrew Scheer looks like a fucking little boy, like a awkward, like stupid little boy, like such that it wouldn't work out too well for him.
To be
with
honest,
the Trump
Andrew
group.
Scheer wasn't my pick either. I would much rather
No.
somebody else. Especially like the thing is, if the conservatives won, like if they see what happened in the U.S. and that I believe that there's a silent majority as well in Canada that are opposed to this liberal government, they should have thought in the ways that not the ways that the Republican Party did, because like they opposed Trump anyways, and they still do.
Mm-hmm.
But they should have gone for a populist.
Oh yeah,
Somebody who, like, I think that they really threw away their chances by picking Scheer.
yeah. I think it was this terrible idea to pick Scheer. Now, if they only wanted to win, they should have chosen one of those like crazy crackpots like Leitch. They might have had a chance because she's just crazy, but if they really wanted to be like useful and bring some respect to the Conservative Party, they should have chosen like a moderate, because the truth is most of the country is relatively liberal in their stance, but they're looking for someone who's not all show and bullshit right now, right? If they had chosen like a moderate conservative who was like able to discuss some serious issues, was not too flashy, I think they would have had a really good chance. And honestly, I might have voted for them, even though I think that a lot of the people in that Conservative Party have some deep down like racist tendencies. But I honestly would have voted for a moderate conservative.
What about this guy that's running for the
Jagmeet
NDP?
Singh.
That doesn't even have a seat, man.
I
think he's a joke too. I mean, as much as Trudeau.
think the NDP, like Jack Layton was. It was like Jack Layton just gave so much like legitimacy and like inspiration to the NDP, and they it's like they didn't really see. It's like they kind of took for granted so many things about him that they didn't even know how to continue in that path without him. So they put at first this Mulcair, who's just like.
You know what? I told you this. I liked Mulcair for a period, and then I was like, wait,
I liked him a
what?
little bit at the beginning, and then he like revealed himself to be just as like totally flimsy and like.
Yeah, he was flaky.
Oh
Definitely
my
flaky.
God, terrible. And obviously the rest of Canada saw that because they fucking like were like, what the fuck?
You know, if he wasn't so flaky, I think that maybe Harper could have gone, like, because he would have split the vote enough so that Harper could have been. I mean, look, I didn't like Harper either. I thought he was like a weird alien robot kind of guy. Have you seen that video about the Breaking Bad? Have you seen that one?
No.
Where he comes up, and I'll try to find the video and put it in this video, but he's like, "Hi, I'm Stephen Harper," and he talks like with this broken. Like,
Oh yeah.
and he's like, "I like to watch Breaking Bad."
Oh, that's right. They were trying to like.
and he trying to be hip or something. It is so weird.
Oh my God.
It is so weird. Holy shit.
No, that guy was just. Yeah. I mean the stories that came out about like really like bully behind the scenes was just like fucked up. I mean, to me the biggest. It's like some people argue that there's always that kind of thing going on, but let's talk about the contract that every federal scientist was required to sign. That is unprecedented.
Yeah.
Right. That kind of manipulation, like micro manipulation of the entire government was just, to me, that was unprecedented.
I don't even think I'm a conservative. I just I just thought like, holy shit, Harper is weird, man.
Well, I have to say, like I said, with these parties, I feel like the Liberals have kind of lost so much credibility over the years. You know, they were it was just like non-stop corruption scandals, and the conservatives, to me, just like sometimes they're just caught up with like some sort of trickle down economics bullshit.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't kind of
That's
agree to that.
that's like seriously problematic, and luckily it's not nearly as intense as in the U.S. it is.
Well, like if you think about it, I think that the liberals do the like trickle down economics too. They just don't talk about it.
Well, I think, yeah, I think that what I think happens in Canada is that there's always these really tiny kind of loopholes that are being created. You know, like my impression is that there's these little tiny loopholes which give really big kind of I don't know, really big benefits to certain people. You know, and it's just.
Well, speaking about that, do you remember this? I think it was last year, but that JT held some sort of dinner party, and you had you could quote unquote anybody could go, but the invitation was like $2,000 and it was tax deductible.
Oh, yeah.
It's that kind of shit that's like,
Yeah.
you know, like it look. To be honest, like that was one of the things that was, for me, that was like, sure, maybe JT is not such a bad guy. He's just like running his mouth on social justice shit because it's popular now and he just wants to be popular. But that was one of the things that I was like, no, that's not, that's a little like cronyist. And the second was when the whole election reform thing, that was cancer, man.
Oh, that was complete. But you know, to me, I still stand by what I feel about Trudeau. I have a feeling he's a really nice guy. Like I've seen in some of these town halls, he talks to everybody like a school teacher from a Hollywood movie, you know, where he's like dealing with like youth from like bad parts of town. Like he talks to them with such respect and boundaries, and but it's and he treads the line, I think, very well between being condescending and setting boundaries. Sometimes he crosses over, but most of the time I feel he treads that line. But I have a feeling that when it comes to like expertise and having political principles and kind of like a direction, a principled direction for where he wants to lead the country, I don't think he has the knowledge to really understand what those. First off, I'm not sure he's really committed to his principles. Exactly. That's one of the biggest reasons I'm not convinced that he knows that, like, when he says, you know, I really believe that, like anybody who's like that nice and friendly and has an upbringing like his that's liberal and progressive is, of course, in this day and age is going to say, you know, we need to make sure that there's better income inequality. I don't think he has the knowledge to understand exactly how to make that happen.
It's just buzzwords. But what was I going to say? I have a completely different perspective of what happened at his town hall meetings for Trudeau. Like, I think he looked like more of an ass in them. Like, there's two of them in particular, especially one when he's in Quebec, and then somebody asks him a question in English, and he's like, well, this is Quebec, we're going to talk in French here. And he looked like a dumbass.
No, but I think he's doing his classroom thing, man. Like, you read the stories, and almost all of the students just adored him, right? And he's just like, he's doing his classroom thing, like, look, this is our French class, and we respect all the French people here. Oh my God! It's like you're teaching children how to respect a culture, right? Like that's the thing.
It's time for another one.
And some, in the history of stories.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think he's doing his classroom thing. I think that's like the place that you get to see the aptitudes and skills he's been developing in his life. That's where you get to see it. Because I don't think, I'm really not convinced he has the aptitudes to see any sort of political principled directions through to their kind of fruition.
There was one town hall in particular that I remember, because I remember, like, I felt personally sad, and it was like, I think I posted it on my Facebook wall. It was this woman that, like, she said that she was a grandma. She was the only person earning income in her home, but that was
my
a
God.
huge problem in of itself, and that's okay.
You're talking about the hydro.
Yeah, and then it's like, how then, Mr. Trudeau, can you tell me that we're gonna raise hydro? I'm gonna lose my house. I'm gonna lose the ability to feed my kids. Blah 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 blah. And Trudeau is like, well, like, I have another one. This, like, literally Trudeau's response was like, sorry, bro. Like, he kind of I wonder if, oh man, I don't know where it is, but it's I think this is the one. Yeah. That was Trudeau's response, like,
The thing is, okay, to give some perspective on that, I don't know what the fuck they were doing. This is what Trudeau was doing there. First off, Trudeau should never have been there, right? Do you realize that none of this has to do with the federal government? None of that issue has to do with the federal government.
yeah, it's provincial.
Right. So they brought in Trudeau because they thought his popularity and his perception of being compassionate would allow for some kind of quelling of the anger. The problem is that he is compassionate, but it doesn't really matter. Like, he does not have the knowledge to be able to make solutions that really do this compassion. And quite frankly, he's this principled leader, the way a classroom teacher is, right? So they delegate all their responsibilities to the kids, so that their responsibilities to the kids, so the kids can learn responsibility. I'm sure he does the exact same thing in government, which is why everybody loves him. The problem is the Liberal government is just as corrupt as ever, and there's plenty of corruption there, just like in the Conservative Party, just like in all the parties. There's just always a little bit of corruption. There's always people who take that political maneuvering a little too far, who just like start getting the kickbacks, you know. And so yeah, it's not coming out, and so it starts to feel, at least for me, from that moment, it's like and I'm sure others felt the same way. Trudeau's kind of starting to feel like that person who tells you everything you want to hear, but like has no power in this situation and doesn't admit it and doesn't realize it or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that, like, as you said, because it was provincial, there was this lack of foresight from the Liberals. I mean, that was just ammo for Conservatives, man. That was just ammo.
Oh, it was just so stupid.
It was like early Christmas for Conservatives, and they will use that. I'm sure that ad, like, will come back, like, that video will come back to haunt him. And it will be in 2 years' time now.
Well, see, what they should have done, this brings me to an important discussion, this hydro situation.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know how this has happened, right? But basically, the provincial government for the last 15 years has ignored their own capital planning assessments, okay? And so they started to build certain types of power plants and do all these things without any accountability for how they were going to pay for it. And so now the whole hydro system is massively in debt. Never mind that the Ontario government is the largest non-nation, has the largest non-nation debt in the entire world. I don't know if you know that.
I don't know that. Holy shit.
So they're so far in debt. But the problem is that they built these power plants. They did not follow the assessments of their capital planning. And so now it doesn't matter which government is in power. They are severely in trouble when it comes to their debt, and in particular to the hydro situation. So they keep raising hydro rates because they're so far behind in debt. They have to try and get this money back, right? So to me, I don't know if you heard about this, what Ontario is doing for the legalization of marijuana.
No, I have no
Okay,
idea.
so what they've done is just the worst fucking thing in the entire fucking world, okay? We have in Ontario the worst liquor control board situation, right?
Oh, don't get started
We
with
have
that.
the most corrupt government monopoly in the entire world.
Oh,
Literally,
the LCBO is cancer, man.
the LCBO is like created, for those who are listening, the LCBO was created during the time of Prohibition to control liquor, okay? And then it was more like a policing force, I think. And then when it was, Prohibition ended, they were the sole retailers of alcohol in order to make sure that it wasn't overconsumed. And now they are legally the sole retailers of alcohol in this province. Nobody else is allowed to sell it unless they sell wine blends. They can't sell imported wines, which is the stuff that everybody really likes. So anyways, now we're legalizing weed, and there's the potential for massive amounts of tax money. And the Ontario government has decided to create the Cannabis Board or something like that, a subsidiary of the LCBO, to be the sole retailer of weed in this province. It is the most corrupt thing ever. But you know what? What I would love to have seen is for them to say, look, we're going to, even if they decided to do that, we're going to do this, and we're going to take all of the extra income that comes from this, and we're going to put it into the debt. We're just going to funnel it into the debt. We're going to start breaking this down. They're going to have to raise hydro rates. It's disgusting, but they're in such a hole, they're going to have to raise hydro rates. But at least if they could funnel some of this tax money into there, we would have a situation where we were actually starting to knock this down.
The other situation.
But I don't trust their decision. I don't trust this decision at all. And not only that, they're only creating 40 retailers across the province, which is according to their own government assessment. Their own provincial government assessment says that legalizing marijuana and selling it across the province will not get rid of the black market. But it will actually, that the only way to reduce it would be to really create a large, diverse, competitive market. And instead, they're going to create 40, which they suggested that the number of retailers should be closer to 200 to compete with the black market. And there's going to be zero diversity. There's going to be zero competition.
Well, speaking of corruption, you know what? I did know that there's another reason about the hydro rates being so high as they are, and like the fact is that you know what the salary of this?
Yes, that's another part that deeply concerns me. That the whole point of a government industry is to say, to me at least, the real value of having the government buy something is because it's buying it in the biggest bulk amounts we could.
Yeah.
It's like it's buying it at the cheapest wholesale price it possibly can because everybody needs it.
So that's a 6-digit salary, if I'm not wrong.
It's a 6-digit. No, it's more than that. I'm pretty sure it's a 7-digit salary. But to give you an idea, it is the highest paid executive in charge of a hydro company in the country, and it is paid twice as much as the second place. No, as the second place executive.
Well, I know that they make like a ridiculous more amount.
They make something like I'm pretty sure it's like 1.2 million or something disgusting like that.
Well, yeah, man. If you decided to take like some cuts to their salaries, I think that the whole like hydro situation could be averted.
Oh yeah.
But you know what? They're just gonna move it over to the prols. So that's how that rolls.
I just think I think we're in a situation in the world anyways where things are becoming more difficult. Income inequality is rising. And in the past, what always happens is there's kind of an uprising, a shifting of order. And in the past, every country has this kind of decision. They tread this line where they decide to either choose a populist or a fascist, and I don't know.
So you were
Canada chose a populist, but he ended up not really being a populist, just a showman, an entertainer, with I think a good heart, but like just no knowledge or minimal knowledge of how to make things happen.
So you were going to talk about something that I have a sound for.
Oh yeah.
Smoke weed every day.
I guess that didn't work out too well, but whatever. Yeah, I'm concerned that not only is the LCBO shit, But if they're gonna run the whole marijuana, I mean, you know me, I don't really care. I just hope that people don't smoke up and drive and
Well, I mean, the rules are supposed to be, the federal age is going to be 18, but in Ontario the age is going to be 19, which to me seems like just some stupid, like, political thing. Like, look, we're being a little more hard line than everybody else. Like nobody fucking gives a difference. Because an 18-year-old and a 19-year-old are so fucking different.
Yeah.
My God. But,
You can do porn, but you can't smoke weed.
Huh?
You can legally do porn, but not smoke weed.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, how else are powerful men going to get to look at young females? You know, it's like cigars versus weed, right? Cigars are probably worse for you than smoking weed. We don't really know for sure, but we have a feeling that cigar smoking is worse for you than weed. But weed was smoked by, like, poor black people, and cigars was smoked by rich white men. So which one do you think got made illegal? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I know that a lot of the I think a lot of the weed anti-weed movement comes actually from a movie that was released or something like that, or pamphlets that were.
Are you talking about Reefer Madness?
Something like that.
The
It's
film
like
by
there's some black guy that smokes weed and he starts raping white women, and then everybody's like, shit.
I know the name. I'm pretty sure the film was called Reefer Madness, and it was by I know this guy. I know the name. Anyways, it's a famous man who made this film in the United States. It's a black and white film. It's like 25 minutes long. I've seen it a few times.
What are you doing watching that shit, man?
No, you know why? Because we did. There's a musical that was made that kind of mocks that, based on the plot of that, and I performed that a few times, and so we watched the original a few times.
It's like the jazz singer. Have you seen that one?
Well, no, I haven't seen that.
That one's like I think it was one of the first movies with sound.
Okay.
And it was the white guys pretending to be a black guy singing jazz. So they just give him blackface.
Oh my God, it's awful. So, but in this original Reefer Madness, they have moments where, like, a guy, this little boy, this Bible-loving boy, smokes weed and gets so corrupted, he, like, gets in his car, starts driving around, like, intentionally hits an old man as he laughs maniacally. You know, like the film gets more and more ridiculous. Actually, you should see the movie musical. In it, one of the characters who's in the original movie says, "I got me the munchies real bad," and ends up eating a woman. It's just, They push it even further, you know.
Okay, so we're at an hour. I think we should cut it down.
Yeah.
We'll wait for the next episode.
Sounds good.
It also started.
Until next time.
Oh, smoke weed every day.
Smoke weed every day.
Oh, I don't even smoke weed, so don't do
neither.
that.